All right, we're started.
Morning, everybody. You got Mike and Matt here from Talking Chickens with M&M Exhibition Poultry. It's the 3rd of March, 2025. Kind of a great day here in northwestern Ohio, but it's a lot better than it has been. So we're going to just go on from there. Introduce you my buddy over here and partner, Matt Lehman.
Howdy. Welcome back. Thanks for all the feedback.
Yeah,
Good or
it's been real good, real nice. I've enjoyed it. Just a reminder, this will be going on YouTube also, besides our M&M page, and we're working on other stuff. But we're old. Uh, Give us a chance. It'll take a while to figure out how we get everything to everywhere it's supposed to be. But we'll put it on YouTube probably later on this afternoon. And when you get on there, if you hit subscribe and like, it'd be great. It'll make it come up a little bit easier for everybody and make us easily found. So if you don't like it, but don't like, and probably don't tune back in because we'll probably be talking the same shit all the time. So, all right, man,
also,
what we got going today?
it's also on Spotify, so I threw the link up on the M&M Facebook page. But for those that like to listen to the podcast without having to watch the video, you can do that
That might
through
be a good.
Spotify.
That might be a good choice.
And the same thing with Spotify, like and follow. And my dogs are having a fight in here while we're having this talk, of course, because they
I
can't be
understand.
2 feet away from me. But it'll be on
Yeah.
Spotify for those that like to stream it that way. Now, I've had trouble in my car doing that. It doesn't seem to want to work, but I'll figure it out. This is way more technology than I need. But I think the first thing we was going to talk about today was feed and feeding.
Yeah.
And
Why don't you start since you're the feeding man?
yeah, I guess I'll go with it. I guess for years I used, and Mike did too. We used a product from Kent Feed called it was called Showtail. Originally, it was a pigeon feed, but we found out it was a great chicken feed for exhibition birds, and probably up to what about 2012, I think, or 13.
Yeah.
All these feed companies decided to go to plant-based protein instead of the animal-based protein, and what we found after a few months of this was we couldn't get any birds in condition. They just didn't finish right. They were existing on it, but that it just wasn't a complete feed for the birds. So then we started supplementing and doing different things to try to get that back. And in about 2017, I got into the feed business. My friend, my daughter's friend, and my friend Michael Schlumbaum graduated from the University of Arkansas and started up a feed company down in Greenville, Ohio called Frontview, and kind of listened to what we were saying. And we actually helped him formulate a couple of varieties of feed. And from there, we kind of proceeded on, and he went with a mash based feed, which I wasn't real fond of at the time, but that was the only way they could make it. So they didn't have a pellet mill there to make the pellet feed. So we fed the Frontview feed. We formulated one when we were at Frontview with him. It was called M&M Master Mix, which was a kind of a combination of a grain and a high protein pellet feed, which I think now everybody's copied. Um, Kallenbach and ADM now has one that's similar to that. But
Hmm.
the problem with that was, and we made it real specific when we called it out. It was a great conditioning feed, but when you feed a combined ration like that with grain and pellets, you have to make sure they eat it all because birds, whether
Yeah.
they're pigeons or chickens, have a tendency to hunt and pick what they like, and they don't get complete nutrition that way. That's why I like a pelleted or a crumble feed, because whenever they eat one of those pellets or one of those crumbles, they're getting 100% nutrition of what's put into that formula. These companies spend millions of dollars. I'm going to steal this from my friend Clell Agler, but he always said these companies spend millions of dollars formulating this feed. Why do you try to recreate it? And that makes a lot of sense in some ways. So we always want to fiddle around with it and add this or that. But every time you add something to it or take something away, you're messing up that balance of amino acids and nutrients that they need to grow. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today. With a few years of Front View, then Michael kind of left that company, and I was going to get out of the feed business because it's a lot of work. And right now, I'm a 66-year-old man throwing 8 tons of feed a month. But I guess I don't have to go to the gym for that's a good reason.
Yeah.
We went with a company, a friend of ours, a customer of ours, Dave Driggers down in South Georgia, was the ADM big shot. He was a rep, so he kind of talked me into swinging over to ADM, and since then it's been fantastic. I'm real happy with their feeds, and it's a company that number one supports the hobby. They support the American Bantam Association, the Ohio National, the Ohio State Fair, by giving them money and sending reps to talk about feed. And they actually listen to us in our market. So what we need is, as customers, is a little different than a person with just a backyard flock. So we need specific things, and they listen to that. And they've actually, some of the feeds that we've formulated since I've been with them have worked out real well. So I always tell everybody the best thing you do is get your feed locally if you can, because the farther away it is, the more expensive it is. The freight is what kills us in the feed business, is getting it shipped where you need to distribute it. So if you can get
And
it,
the age of it, the age, who knows how long it sits there.
that's right. Feed's only good for about 6 months. So the ADM stuff's dated, and it's made over here in Bluffton, Indiana, which is about 70 miles from me. And that's where I pick it up. Excuse me. And it works out good because it's never more than a month old and everybody's getting fresh stuff. So I have about 50 customers, and they actually, some of them come from pretty far away to come and get it from me. There they go. And my puppies. They come from pretty far away to come and get it, but they also refer a lot of people to ADM. If you go to ADM.com, they have a dealer locator, and you can punch in your zip code and they'll tell you the dealer's nearest. And then there's certain formulas that we like, and we can get those for you if you want to private message me them. The ADM Marigold Layer was one we formulated with some additions. Come to find out, a couple years ago at the Ohio State Fair, Gail Lars was the plant manager at Bluffton. I didn't even know it, and we were sitting there with Dave and a couple other reps from ADM, and we actually formulated that Marigold Layer right there at the Ohio State Fair, and it turned out to be our biggest seller and probably the greatest feed I've ever seen to like get your birds in production. So I've had customers that had 4 and 5 year old hens. Tim Johnson comes to mind up in Bowling Green, up around Bowling Green, Ohio, that had 5-year-old black giant hens that hadn't laid, and he actually bred from them that year. He switched to Marigold Layer. They actually started producing.
Clell was the same way. Clell's birds weren't laying like that.
Yeah, Clell's white leghorn bantams, he was having trouble getting them to lay. And once they got on this Marigold Layer, it's the right amount of proteins, the right amount of amino acids, and it's like almost 5% calcium. So that extra calcium boost helps them. The good thing about their formulas is they're locked, so they don't mess with them. So it's always the same. The feed's always consistent. It's not dusty. A lot of good things about the way they produce their feed. Great mill, great facility. ADM is one of the biggest agricultural companies in the world, and the fact that they actually listen to us and promote the hobby is a big thing in my mind. So that's why I always promote that. But again, if you can find something local and it's got what you want in it, we like some animal-based protein, which usually comes down to pork and bone meal mixture they can buy to put in it. And then a lot of them use fish meal. That's good as well. But if it's strictly a plant-based feed, you're going to have problems in getting them in condition. And kind of where we went with that. And then feeding it. So again, like we talked about feeding those, if you use some of these whole grain pellet mixes, you got to make sure they eat it all. So you don't want to overfeed. You want to give them what they're going to clean up in whatever interval. Like I feed every other day. So if they don't clean it up in a couple of days, they're not getting any more till they finish it up. And once you get them trained to do that, and they're not wasting it, that's the other thing you got to watch. And when I had moderns, which I've had them for years off and on, but their moderns and Coach Amos are notorious for wasting feed. They'll just rake it out of the cup until they get it all out of there, and then then they don't want to eat it off the ground. They're just playing with it. So you want to make sure the birds eat the feed, and design your feeding mechanisms that way, so you're not getting a lot of waste. Because I think that's the biggest thing that we have with feed is eliminating the waste, and that'll cut your costs way back because it's not cheap anymore. I think when I started years ago in the 70s, when we first went to bag feed from making our own, it was a couple dollars a bag. Now it's up to $20 a bag. So it's not a cheap thing to do, and you want to eliminate as much waste as possible. And I don't recommend all the supplementation that I see people doing. So when they do that, they're kind of cutting down the nutritional value of what's put into that feed. So there are certain things you can do at times. A lot of times I'll use, like Mike and I like to use some of these horse oil supplements that people use to put the shine on their horses.
Mm-hmm.
I like to pellets with them every once in a while if I'm trying to get something in condition, just to give them a little boost. It soaks into the pellet, and it doesn't take away from the nutritional value. It kind of adds to it, so you're not
Mm-hmm.
messing it up. Or if you mix scratch grain in with your feed, or if you mix oats, or if you mix whatever into there, you're cutting that nutritional value down. So if you're going to add something, you don't want to add something that's going to take away from the nutritional value of the feed. And that's pretty much it. I did find one thing out in this whole mess because of doing the feed dealing. I picked up a product from them for my meat chicken customers. It was called Meat Maker, which was a complete feed to run meat birds. And I'm talking about meat turkeys, meat chickens, meat ducks, meat geese, all the way out to they're done, to their process. So you give that to them from day one all out. And a lot of good marketing, a lot of good science behind that feed. Well, I run out of regular chick starter one time, and I thought, what the hell am I going to give my stuff here for until I get back over to the mill to get some? So I grabbed a bag of this Meat Maker, and after about 2 days, I immediately called Mike and I said, "You ain't gonna believe this." I said, "You know how chicks rake feed out, and there's always a bunch in the bottom of the brooder pans." I said, "There isn't a speck of this stuff in the bottom of that brooder pan. They're eating every bit of it." And I was amazed at how better the chicks were, how better they did. So we've kind of switched to the ADM Meat Maker for our starter feed. It's kind of got one downside. It's non-medicated. So
Right.
if I have a coccidiosis issue, or I think I'm going to, I just run cord in the water, which I did even with the medicated feed. So that wasn't a big change. But I do tell everybody up front it's not medicated. But I challenge anyone to take a batch of chicks, and I've got a bunch of customers who have done this, and use regular starter and use this stuff and see the difference in your chicks. And it's amazing. They grow better, they get bigger, they look nicer, they just thrive a little better. And I don't care whether it's large fowl, bantams, not so much for waterfowl, although you can use it for waterfowl. And I did use it for my call ducks when I was starting them out. After about 6 weeks, I would put them back on the waterfowl pellet when they got big enough to eat the pellet. But
Well, it's 20% protein, so you don't want to over protein them, especially.
and it's truly all plant based, but it has the right mix of stuff in it. So as they get older, then I'll move them over to the feed that usually at about 3 months, I move them over to the feed that has the animal protein in it. But up until then, they seem to do really good on this. So those are two that are really popular, and what I normally push on people if they're going to try to. Most of my customers are feeding showbirds. I do have some that feed laying flocks. I have some that feed gamecocks. I have some that feed meat birds, exclusively. I have a lot of duck customers, turkey customers, but those have worked real well. And then just last year, ADM come out with one called Prime. That's like is another good feed. It has a real high protein fish meal and pork and bone meal pellet in it, along with some whole grains, and they're all good whole grains. They're no Milo. It's got sorghum, wheat, oats, peas. It's got green peas, roasted soybeans, and just about everything in there. Sunflower, safflower, everything in there is good. So Mike uses that too, and it's great for conditioning male birds. It's normally what I do. They get it 2 or 3 times a week. When I'm not feeding them the marigold layer, I don't like to feed the male birds the layer all the time, especially cochins, because it has so much calcium in them. And cochins, when they get too much calcium, it comes out their back end and it sticks to their feathers. So if you see that big white ball of stuff on their butt, they're getting too much calcium, and that's normally in the male birds because they're not utilizing the calcium like the females do, and they'll pass it right on through. That tends to get chalky and stick to their feathers. So that's why I use the Prime as like my secondary feed. I use it for the male birds, and if the birds aren't in production, so if the females are done laying, I will feed them that to kind of get them back over the molt and into condition. And then once they get to laying again, I'll put them back on the marigold layer feed. So that's kind of our feeding methods nowadays. After years of messing with it, I'm glad I don't have to mess with it, because it's not fun to. Because it takes too long to see the results, I guess, is the problem. You don't know if you're actually giving them effective feed until you see the results, either in the showroom or in the chicks or whatever. So these worked well. Like I said, the company works with us, so that's a big plug to ADM, and we do thank them for their sponsorship of the American Bantam Association and the Ohio National and the Ohio State Fair, because they've gotten great exposure to the exhibition hobby, and lots of customers have come to them that way. And again, like we talk about feeding, I don't like a lot of supplements, but there is one I'm going to talk about now. Plug our sponsor, Rogier's Poultry Supply, because they picked this up. Is the Nutri-Drench. So all my chicks get that in their water, and I kind of don't mix it like. I guess I'm not a good rule follower, anyways. But I put it in a gallon jug and I make it look like weak iced tea, and that's just my go-to for that. All the chicks get that when they get started, and then I run it to all the big birds a couple of times a week. And if you've got a bird that's off feed and just looking pretty peaked and you're not thinking it's going to make it, I'll take a few cc's of it and shoot it right down their throat. And I've saved more than I've ever lost.
Yep.
And I've got customers when I was selling Nutri-Drench myself. I have customers that will swear by it and still use it. So I'm not a big supplement person. Mike will tell you, and most of it's just voodoo. I don't over medicate. I don't over supplement, but that's one I keep, and we keep it around because it does help them, especially when they go off feed. They just get to where they don't want to eat, and for some reason, whatever's in that, it gives them enough boost to get them to back where they have an appetite, and they'll pop out of it. So,
Well, it's the same thing on that. It's the time of the year too. This time of year, first part of March, and a lot of people are probably done breeding. We're just getting started. But when you go from not laying to full lay, and then you're breeding and your male birds, and you've had your lights on. Well, it doesn't hurt to give them a supplement to for a while to get that in them to get it going. I don't think anything should be used all the time. Rogier's has another thing, and I can't remember it. I meant to get it, and it's a breeder mix they have, and I've been using that this spring. Uh, I like it. It's because it's springtime for me, and I'll use it just so they have extra vitamins going in, because a strong bird, a strong hen lays a strong egg that has everything in it to develop into a strong chick, and I do believe in that. But you don't want to go overboard on any of those things. I've used that. I used to mix my own minerals, like I said before, in the last one. I was a horse trainer, so I try everything if I can get an edge. Uh, and getting that edge is up to you. Whatever you think works, and it's the same way. We use ADM feed. If I happen to run out, I'll run to my local mill and get some feed. I'm probably against what everybody says, but I'm not one guy that thinks that if you change something's ration, that it necessarily has that big of an effect on them. Now, I didn't do that in horses, but I really don't worry about it with chickens. But that's just me. When you throw chickens out, you can put your pan of feed out. If they're out running, they're going to eat a little of this, they eat a little of that. They seem to adapt a little quicker than a mammal does. That's my personal opinion. I have no scientific backup except 50 years of doing this crap. So I don't worry if I run out. I'll run to the local mill. Sometimes it's just their grind, which my local mill uses animal protein, and they use Kalmbach-based products for their mill. But I'll get it maybe. Other times I'll get a Kalmbach. It's called Turkey Finisher, and it does have animal protein. But most things, including most of Kalmbach, nothing against Kalmbach. If that's what you get or you sell it, that's great. I've had good luck with it. They're local, actually, for us too. But make sure it's got an animal protein to it, an animal based protein. Not very many do anymore. So that's just my ideas. But basically, I feed. Well, I was just at Matt's this weekend and picked up another load of feed. On the M&M Marigold layer, it's a fantastic feed. Most people don't have
the thing with that was originally called. It was a custom blend when we first.
Oh, that's right. It's just called the Marigold layer now.
It was called M&M Marigold layer because it was our custom blend, but
right.
Got fairly popular, and they actually ADM took it over, so now it's ADM Marigold layer, and it's actually a feed in their repertoire and made at several locations now across the. They have mills all over the country.
Right.
And, it's made several places now, and I've got a few of them over in Pennsylvania using it pretty heavy, and some down south now and the East Coast. So they're real happy.
What I was getting at, is I really like that. Now, for some reason, whether it's feather quality, texture, whatever, uh, I don't use it straight when I'm getting past. When my birds are in feather, then I'll feed it. I can feed it straight. But usually I mix the prime with it, so they get both. Because to me maybe I'm full of crap, but to me it's that marigolds seem to make their feathers yellow. Matt doesn't have that problem, uh, but and again it might be the coaches. Maybe if they got a gold gene in them, too much of a gold gene or something backing that up. But use what works for you. But if you're looking for a feed and you can get ADM, I highly recommend it. I've never had a bad bag ever,
Yep. It's really
and
consistent. Their quality control is second to none. Believe me.
yep,
I think I've sold probably 1 million bags of feed, and I've had one bad one, and that was just because they changed over from one brand to another, and it kind of got some clumps in one bag. But uh,
right, right,
other than that, I mean, that's for as many bags as I go through. I'm shocked because I haven't had that luck with nobody else. And you never have
yeah,
bad feed, old feed, moldy feed, things like that. There, it's always
yeah,
consistent, and it's always, and that's because we move a lot of it, and it
yeah. It
doesn't.
helps.
So that's another thing. You want to make sure you get your feed from a source that moves a little bit of it, because typically your big farm stores, what they do is if they don't sell all their starter by the end of the season, it goes in the back room and then it comes back out in the spring. Well, a lot of people have problems with starter, and that's what it is. It's I look at from working at P&G all them years, I know how to read a code date, and you're looking at
Yep,
stuff that's 8, 9, 10 months old, and that's
yep.
why it loses its effectiveness after it sits that long. So
It's just a filler.
make sure it's fresh.
Then, yep. All right, now let's move on. How about marketing your hobby?
Now, this was the one that my old friend Clay Dove always said, and he probably wasn't the best at it, but he kind of the problem with this hobby is that you can be the best chicken breeder and raiser in the world, but if nobody knows you're there, you're not going to do much. So
Nope.
that's why we always recommend, and we have for years, ABA, APA yearbook ads, poultry press ads. Let them know that you're out there. If you have a decent win, or even if you don't, just get your name out in front of the hobby.
Yep.
The yearbooks are great because it's kind of a timestamp of that year in the hobby, and it lets people know that, hey, this guy raised this or that over the years, and it's a good place that people go to reference to get birds. Number one, if you're into selling lots of birds, that's a great place to do it. But you just need to let people know that you're out there, and we've kind of built the brand up since 2001 or two, since we started, to
Right,
where people know it, and kind of with the white devil thing, we kind of built that up, and it kind of took off, and people know what those are, and a lot of judges, when they go to reach in to get one, they're already leery of what's going to happen. So it was just kind of a joke at the time, but it kind of kicked off. So you have to
right,
let them know what you got, and those are great places in this hobby to inexpensively market it. We
right,
did that exclusively for years, and then along come this Facebook and internet and things like that. So there's other places to market it, but the problem is you're not target marketing. I wouldn't
mm-mm.
know it, but that's what my college degree is in marketing. So to target market, you want to get to that audience that's your most prospective bunch of customers. Well, those things are. The internet's kind of a scattergun effect, and I see things on there anymore. It just makes me cringe for every part of the hobby, feeding, breeding, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, some of these people have been in it 15 minutes and they know it all and are telling everybody else how to do it. So,
yeah. They're internet experts. They're in every field and everything, and half of them, they're not even spurts, let alone experts. But you know, I read them. If I don't get too mad, I just go on, and sometimes, well, set them straight, and sometimes just shake my head and just push
not as
that
much as we used to. I
don't follow,
kind of
huh?
chilled over the years. When I see something stupid,
Yeah,
just
I'm getting better. That's all according to the day and what's happened during that day, but sometimes things just hit you wrong, and you just gotta have enough of the crap, and you know, then it's listen here time, and well, then things usually go south from there. So, but that's the most important thing out of the hobby is just get your name out there, and you don't have to go over the top. I mean, we've got stuff like this, and we got some shirts, and we have our this and our Facebook page, and we got the YouTube channel. But most of the time, if you go to the shows, if you don't see us or you don't see the birds, we don't have shit wrote on everything. Uh, the carriers, and not there's anything wrong with it. If that's the way that you want to market, that's fine. But I mean, there's other ways to do it.
Yeah, we
Uh,
found out you didn't put it on your trailer because when you're coming back to Florida, you'll get stopped at the agricultural station. So
that's exactly right.
sometimes it's good to be inconspicuous. Poor old
Yeah.
Bob Bridges. One time we were coming back from Florida from Danny and Norma's show down there, and we seen Bob. He used to have his lab love signs on his trailer and everything. There's Bob pulled over with all of his chickens out along the side of the road. So
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
we just kind of slide in and slide out of Florida.
I got that from my dad. That my dad, we raised thoroughbreds. That's what we did for a living for years and years and years. And everybody would have all their names and stuff emblazoned on everything. And we had a red truck and trailer, and we'd slip in, get the money, load the horse, and slip back out. And that's a good way of doing things. Uh, you invite in this day and age. You invite to me bad characters sometimes will do things because they know it's you, and then I mean we show chickens, and there's jealous people in that, and I can't understand that at all. What makes it's a damn chicken, but people get jealous, and they do things that they shouldn't do, and a lot of things you just read comments on a lot of posts, and you'll get that. So we try not to. Uh, we just like to go and have a good time, and because if we didn't enjoy doing this, wouldn't spend the time doing the damn thing because you're not making any money.
Absolutely
So
not.
but
I mean, there's a lot of money in it. I know because I put it there.
yeah, we put it in. All right, incubation and brooding. Comes to that, I'm just sitting here looking. I've got a Chamuka incubator here with some eggs in it. Had my first candle last night. Let them go a little longer than normal. I think it was 10 days. Probably running a little over 50%. Not the incubator's fault. Too damn cold. And I'm not real good with the AI, keeping up with the AI calendar when it's this early in the year. If it's too cold for them, it's sure the hell too cold for me to go out there and AI. So, but big coachings are about almost 80%. That's pretty damn good for this cold, and they just started going. So, but many of you know that I used to rebuild incubators and redwoods, and I love redwoods and everything. But as I've gotten older, I think I like doing less. And so
The
that's
problem
why
I
after Matt's had him, and he talked me into it, and here I am.
the problem
Go
I
ahead,
guess
Matt.
that was the same thing. Incubation's always been a problem in this hobby, and most of it's because we're using like 30-year-old technology to do our incubation with.
Mm-hmm.
Realized that, so about 10 years ago, I decided probably the biggest mistake I ever made was I got a Brinsa incubator, which really was no problem with the function of it. It did what it was supposed to do, but just the company and getting parts from them turned out to be a hassle because I didn't purchase it originally from them. And long story short, I ended up finding the company president over in England at work one night because we worked night shift, and I had a little time there. So I ended up getting the parts for it and got it working. But then I started researching. So I did a little bit of everything. Had the GQF knockoff for years that old Vic Hakes made me, and that was probably
Mm-hmm.
a million chicks come out of that. But even at that
Yeah.
point, if we got a 60% hatch, that was good. So I just started doing some research, looking around, and I tried everything. I went to Rolex. I went to I love my humid airs and got a lot of better hatch out of humid airs. But again, they've been out of business since the late 90s, and it was old technology. And got into the Samuka kind of accidentally. Um, I found it before they were ever here in the States. I seen they were out of Turkey, and I just liked the system. It didn't use the problem with most incubators. They either use ambient heat or direct heat for humidity, and every time you do that, that messes up your temperature and your humidity. It's not constant. The Samukas, or the hatching time was what they're called here in the States. They use a sonication humidity system that doesn't affect that heat. So your temperature and your humidity is always constant. Well, with that, there goes your hatch percentage. So what was 60% hatch percentage, I went up into the 90s. And the good thing about that is you don't have to hatch near as many birds. And Michael find out, and he found that out even with some of the redwoods once we made some adjustments and got the humidity up and constant and not fluctuating. Because if you look at your GQFs, most of them, even the newer ones, I mean, they're no different than what the one was 30 years ago, other than they're electronic. But there's spots in that incubator that are lower humidity and lower temperature. So your hatching tray is going to be cooler and lower humidity than the top. So you've got that fluctuation. In the Samuka or hatching time, it is the same temperature all over that incubator. We got to using from me working in the lab, we got to use test thermometers. So these things are very accurate, and you can put that test thermometer anywhere in there, and it's the same all over, and that makes the difference in your hatching percentage. So that's kind of my thing with the incubation. I've tried them all, had them all. At one time, I think I had 12 incubators here, and I had to get rid of them. And I even tried the Farm Right one, the great big one, which was a good incubator, but not made very well. I didn't think it was made in China. It was kind of cheap, and it burned through the water. It used my cat for a while. It went through 5 tons of water every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, it had great hatches, but damn.
Yeah, and I mean it had a hell of a fan, and another thing these have better than the old ones is ventilation. So they're bringing fresh air in all the time, and that's important. And that's what a commercial incubator does. So they kind of mimic the commercial incubators, and those guys, I mean, they're hatching 90-95%. So that's what they need to hatch to make money. And so these are good incubators. I've found one I haven't had done much research on yet, but it's I know that Strongbird sells them, and I'm trying to think of the name of it now, but it's similar technology is what the hatching time uses. It's a little more expensive. Arcom has a nice incubator. It works on the same way. They're just not real big. That might be the one they sell, but
right.
You got to find out what works for you, and not saying that GQF's bad, but you're going to realize you're not going to have as good a hatch percentage in them.
And again, it's kind of like feed, right? So if you got a GQF or a pair of them, or ever how many, 7, 8, I know people have 8 or 9 of them, and they work for you, great.
Yep.
Ain't no big deal. If you want to get in at $300 less or so than a hatching time, that's fine, do it. But so far, I haven't talked to too many people that don't like them, haven't had good luck, and I'm tired of fixing shit.
Yeah, that's it.
I fixed them and redid them inside. They were gorgeous machines, but I'm tired of doing it.
That was the selling point to you was that you don't have to tinker with it.
And there's no tinkering.
The problem with the redwoods is these things have a sensor on them that takes the ambient temperature and humidity and adjusts the inside. That's what the other ones don't have. That's where they're falling down. So when like mine
right.
When the temperature goes up in the spring, I always had troubles. I had to recalibrate everything, reset the temperature, reset this and that. Even in the humid airs, I had to do that because there was less humidity in the basement in the spring than there was in the summer, in the winter. That's another thing I will say too is over the years, you notice that we don't hatch near as early as we used to. I think when you force them in the 2 worst batches of chicks I ever get are in the summer and in the winter. The best time to hatch is in the spring and the fall. That's just it. But that's, if you think about it, that's naturally when the chickens are hatching. That's when they would hatch under the hen. They're not sitting on them in the winter, and they're not sitting on them in the summer. So, winter and summer are the 2 worst. Some of the worst chicks I've ever got out have been in the summer, just because it's too hot and you're you're right on that bubble of where you're getting them too warm, and then in the winter you're forcing them. So those, in my mind, the spring and the spring and the fall are the two best times to hatch and stay away from winter and summer. And then
Yeah,
brooding, I the damn them, and I cuss those guys that did away with the incandescent light bulbs, because for years I had these old brooders that old Lotus
hey,
had
they're
put in.
coming back.
Yeah, they're coming back, thank God. But and I couldn't get those bulbs anymore, so my brooders were
Nope.
kind of obsolete. And I tried other things, the reptile things, and I didn't care for those too much. Um, so the brooding has kind of changed over the years. I went to the hatching time brooders, and I'm not fond of them because of the heat elements aren't that great. And I went to the plate brooders, and we all know what the problem with the plate brooders are. They're not warm enough for day olds. So they're good for older chicks, but they just you just can't get the day olds warm enough in there. So done some adaptations to my hatching time brooders, and that's what I'm using now, and that seems to be working good for me. And I'll leave them in there till they get just about feathered out. Then they go under those. My GQF brooder is converted over to the heat plates, and I'll put them in there and then grow them out on there, and that works good. So, but just for day olds, I found that they got to be almost right on top of those heat plates for them to get warm enough, and then
Yeah,
you got trouble with them bunching and things. So I like the other uh, heat better than the heat plate
yeah.
per se. But I guess that's it for brooding. I don't really have any more to add.
No,
I like
I hope they bring the incandescents back because I must have 10 of them damn things sitting here.
and those work
I put
great.
them.
I mean, the
Yeah,
ones Zelotus made had a double bulb in them, so if one burned out, you had a backup. And
yeah,
I used them for years, raised a lot of chicks out of them, and then got to the point where I couldn't find the bulbs no more. And then you had to be real careful with some of the foreign bulbs. They put a coating on them, and sometimes that coating, especially the safety bulbs, if I found are deadly to chicks, they give off a
yeah.
fume that'll you go in there and
Kills
they're
them.
all dead. That killed them. So you had to be real careful with the light bulbs. And I like the last ones I got off eBay. I bought a whole case of 100-watt incandescent bulbs, and I think there was 100 in that case. And when they were done, then I didn't have no other, because you can't
Yeah,
find
then
them.
you were done. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's it on reading, I think. And everybody has their own little secrets, but that's always worked for me. I don't like heat lamps. Number one, they're dangerous, and number two, they're poorly made. So I've seen fires and shorts, and the bad thing about heat lamps is that you're in a dusty environment, and that dust gets on them, and you got all kinds of issues with heat lamps. As far as a regular infrared heat lamp, not a fan, never have been, never did use them too much. So that's that. There's a lot
okay.
of them out there, but just be
There you go.
careful. I don't know how many barn fires I know of that have started
A lot of them.
from heat lamps either falling down or getting wet or whatever, shorting out.
Usually
They're
it's
just,
falling down, but they can't, when that bulb gets real hot and it's the base, right? So the base, the glue on the base gives way, and then that heat lamp falls right into the litter. Well, it doesn't take much.
no.
And it start that litter up, and that's what happens, or straw, or whatever the hell you're using.
And
So, yep, they've always been like that.
I was never a big. I know a lot of them use them, but I was
Oh, I've
never.
used them for years.
Well, I mean, of the plastic tote thing, I'm not a fan of
Oh,
that,
yeah,
because two things that happen there. There's not enough ventilation in them, and you get a lot of moisture trapped. So you're going to have coccidiosis. You're going to have respiratory issues and things in those totes unless you keep them immaculate. And you know how chicks are. They don't.
yeah,
It could be clean for 15 minutes and then it's filthy again because they're in there scratching feet and dipping water. And so I've seen a lot of people use them, and I just kind of shake my head there. I'm not a fan of that. And I learned that, I guess, from old Bob Insulin, because everything he had, they were on wire from birth on, and
yeah.
his birds were all on wire, and he never had any disease issues. Um,
Uh,
so I kind of like having them up on somewhere where the crap can fall down, and they just
and
seem
they're
to,
not in it.
yeah, they're
Yeah,
not in it, and they stay healthier.
right, right. I have nothing to add. I've tried and mistried and used and abused and everything, and whatever works for you. The toads I have had problem. I've used them off and on, and the condensation in them is unreal to me.
And you
And
can sort of regulate the temperature in those too.
yeah,
Um, I'm kind of the nice thing about the hatching time breeders. They're in Celsius, but once you figure that out, the conversion, the temperature is pretty steady, and the chicks can get away from the heat if they have to, and you can tell right away whether you got too much or not enough. And I cut it a couple of degrees a week, and those work great. It just I've had trouble with the heating elements burning up in those, and they haven't got that down yet, so they're working on it. But it's I think I've had them for 3 years, and I go through one a year, so
yeah,
we're
yeah.
trying a different brand this year of heating element. We'll report back on how well that works here because I'm just starting. I just got breeding pens put together. I don't tend to push them early anymore. I just don't have a need to. I don't do many fairs. So I don't need them out that early. And I just find they do better if they hatch in March, April, May than any other time of the year. So that's when I get the most of them out. And then if I want other birds, I might throw them together in the fall and get some out in September, October, November range.
Yeah, I liked October chicks real well, but
Yeah, that's a good time.
I didn't get to do that this year. But that's usually everything we show in the spring is usually
That's only when
this.
you get the spring birds out. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And then they're old enough when the real bad weather hits. It's usually not a problem. They don't take near the heat, near the. But if you go hatching in December and January, well, to me that's just a lot of headache anymore.
Yeah, it
And
is.
of course, I don't try to raise 250 large fowl anymore either. And that's insane to me now. I did it. I mean, a lot of you do it that are listening, and that's great if you can do that and want to do that. But I don't want all that work.
Nope, not anymore. And that can be the segue into the next one. Getting started in a breeder variety.
Well, there's a lot of ways. Price of shipping everything is went up, as we know. Uh,
Yeah, I
hatching
got
eggs are ha- there's red.
my buddy
Hatching
Red.
eggs are a great way to get started. But if you get them shipped in, truthfully, if you get 50%, you're doing good. So just keep that in mind. Uh, hatching eggs if someone brings you, go to a show and so that's great. It's a good way to get started. Uh, buying stock at yeah, at shows from breeders. Look at the ABA yearbook. That's the best place to find stock. Pay attention. Go and talk. Uh, and find what you need. And just remember, when you buy birds that are winners, it don't mean you're going to grow winners. Uh, or it, you like something and you go to a show and there's a lot of birds in the sale area, he'll pick you out up here, see what happens. Instead of paying whatever you want to pay a piece for them, a trio for 500 or 300 or whatever. I mean, go pick them out. Study your breed. Figure it out. And you don't always know. Uh, I know. I know what the genetic charts say, but nothing we have is pure. So there's always stuff hidden in there.
I
It
always
makes it
tell
kind of
somebody
exciting.
before you start anything with this, make sure you got room for what you're going to start with. So you can
Yeah.
get a trio and raise 200 chicks out of that trio, but make sure you got room to grow them out and don't get the birds before you have the facilities for the birds. That's the biggest mistake I see going. And don't do the Noah's Ark method and get two of everything. And don't look at us because we've done it. Believe me, we've had everything you could ever want to have and have way
Yeah.
too much. And what happens when you do that is nothing is worth a shit then. So you're better off to start with one breed and one variety and do your research and get the best birds you can afford to buy. And when you approach that breeder, don't go to him and tell him you want the best show birds he's got. And we don't care what they cost. Tell him you want some birds to breed from that will impress them more than the other method. We get this typically this time of year all the time. I'm in 4-H and I want some birds for the fair, and we need them by this day, and I only want females. And what that just turns the old farts like us off. So we don't want to mess with that. But if you
No.
come to me and tell me you want some birds to raise some chicks out of, number one, it shows me you're going to take some initiative and you're going to keep them long enough to raise something out of them. Number two, that you want
Right.
to do that. Number three, that you've got the ump to go raise your own stuff, and that's how we started because we had to. It
Right.
wasn't available
Yeah.
back. You had to go and take somebody else's stuff they were getting rid of and breed from it and work it up a little bit. And we started at a lot lower level than what you can start at now. So you're going to get better birds to start with now than what we had. And you have to raise enough of them. I'm not a big fan of going out and raising 800 and doing 10 different. The problem with most people, they make way too many matings and raise way too many chicks out of way too much stuff, and then they know where nothing comes from. So, and Mike will tell you, I very seldom make more than one or two matings of anything, but I can tell you exactly what, like about 5 generations back, where they come from. One year I used one male for 8 years straight, so I can tell you that that male was stamped into every bird we ever had, and I still see black wind-up bantams running around that I said, I know where that bird come from. It's out of some of our original stuff because he had the same comb and the same head. And
Yeah.
that bird had a hell of a comb and a hell of a head, and we stamped that in everything that we raised. So you don't need a whole lot of birds, number one, to breed from. My friend Bill Henderson is a pigeon guy, and I don't care what Bill raises. He wrote a good article a couple years ago, and I think I shared it a bunch on the internet. But he always says, sell your best birds and breed from your exceptional birds. And I don't care what Bill has. He's had 10 different breeds of pigeons, and he's a master breeder of every one of them. And if you go to his house, he probably doesn't have more than 50 birds. So that's the issue right there. You've got to cut it down to where you're breeding from the absolute best, and you'll get more good ones. When you're breeding from 10 million things, you're going to get 10 million things. You have to narrow that channel down to where you're getting from your best, and they're not going to always produce the best, but you're going to have a better
No.
shot at it.
Yeah.
And those are just my things for people starting when they come to me and they want, because I have some odd stuff with the Chanticleers and over the years with some of the rare colors of Cochins. When I find out they've got 15 other breeds and 10 different varieties of each breed, then I know they're not going to be real serious about perpetuating these birds on, and I'm not going to waste them on them. With the Chanticleers, I've been real picky because they're bad for merits, and I don't start many people in them because I don't want them to come back to me and say, "Well, the birds all died." Well, yeah, they're not not over that yet. So this year I did start one person in Chanticleers, and I think he'll do well with them. Is Nate Nate Reinish up in Wisconsin wanted some, so he's the only person I've ever sold them to, believe it or not, in the years that I've had them. And just for that reason, I just they're not. They still got some Merrick's issues. They're better than they were, but they're not as bad as when I first got them, where they all died except for one. So um, you just gotta do your research, and if you're really dedicated and want a breeder variety, you got to find that person that's going to help you. And if they think you're serious enough about it, they will help you. Stay away from these people that sell to everybody. And I see these. I guess the one I hate to pick on, but these silky people are just insane. What they pay for stuff is nuts. And I think the Polish people are getting just as bad. There's no way I would pay that kind of money for those birds because they're just not that good. I know what a good silky is, judged a million of them, and what I'm seeing being sold in every different color and made up colors is just ridiculous. So just do your research, and you got to show what you like, and you got to raise what you like, and get with those people that do fairly well. I hate that we don't have the box scores in the poultry press no more, because that used to
Yeah.
be the tell sign. You could tell whether somebody was winning in a class or whether they're the only ones there, which is kind of hard to do nowadays, unless you go to the
Yeah.
big shows. But find somebody that's doing consistent, and a good thing to do is just walk down the class. If like I bragged on a couple of my rock buddies last time, but if I walk down the aisle and all your birds look alike, that's the person I want to buy from, because I know I'm not going to get a bunch of variation when I put them together. So
Right.
look for somebody that's doing some consistent breeding and is not raising 50 million things, because we don't have those people anymore that can do that. They don't have the resources or the skill to do it. Um, so I think that's about all I got on that.
The only other thing I have is when you buy something, ask good questions. Uh, Ask the whys. I mean, the why is whatever you want, and if you pick them out, then okay. But if the breeder offers you advice, you probably ought to better take it. Or if you think he's full of crap, that's fine. But if those are still the birds you want, buy them and learn what no one or a lot of people can't do anymore. You keep your opinion to yourself.
And yeah, that's
If
it.
it's going to work, if that's what you want, and no
And there's
matter what the guy says, if you want them, that's fine. Buy them, and then do what the hell you want to with them. You don't have to go spreading crap about them. You don't have to say nothing to nobody about them. Just go do your thing.
yep, another thing you have to put those birds together and raise something out of them. So um,
Yes.
don't pass judgment until you've done that, because I've made that mistake. I've gotten some awful looking birds, but everybody always told me, "Oh, made them up first," and I've raised some beautiful birds out of some awful looking birds. Sometimes appearances are deceiving, and some breeds and varieties get worse with age. So some old birds may not look like much now, but they'll produce some decent birds. So you kind of
Yeah.
want to pass judgment until you actually raise something out of them,
No.
and
No.
done that. I think that's it for that. I don't. Another
That's
thing
it for that. That's good.
yeah, I posted
Good.
this up on the our Facebook page, but a lot of people asked me about this. So I did a few years ago. I did a spreadsheet using what we always preach, and I was taught this by the great ones, is the scale of points. So you got to analyze your birds versus the scale of points. Then you know what you need to work on and what you don't need to work on. You can't do that from memory. I've tried; it doesn't work real good, especially now that my memory's not real good. But you go through that sheet, you'll see on there. There's a Excel spreadsheet that I use, and then there's a little explanation of what I do with it. But if I'm starting out with something new, I'll go through and score every bird, and then after I get the chicks out, the ones that I'm going to keep, go back and score them, and then compare that together and see if you've made improvements in the areas you wanted to make improvements in. If you didn't, then you go back to the drawing board, or if you did, then the next year we want to do a little better. So maybe we're working on better cushions, better heads, better color. That's all in that scale of points, and that's what we use to judge them with. And it'll put some more analytics to it than just opinion. So a lot of times what we hear on birds is opinion, but that actually puts some analytic to it. And you're the one scoring it, so you're the one giving it the score. So you're, and I've had lots of good feedback because nobody ever looked at it that way, I guess. And the ones that use it enjoy it. And that one's for coachings. You can use it for whatever breeding variety you want. Just go through your scale of points in the front of the standard. And if
Yeah.
we ever get the new APA one, they're supposed to put the scale of points back in it. But I know in the ABA Bantam standard, that's the most important part of the Bantam standard is the scale
Yep.
of points. Understand what point cuts are for what, and that makes you more intelligent when you're talking about your birds. Like I said the last time, the worst thing you can tell me is I like. I don't want to. I want to know what's that worth. So if you don't like the head on that bird, we know that the worst you can cut the bird for is 5 points. So that head isn't all that important. The body type and the body shape's a whole lot more important than the head. There's a whole
Yep.
lot of head breeders and a whole lot of comb breeders, but if they don't have that shape, they don't have anything, and you might as well start over. So that's a neat little chart. You can look at it off the Facebook page. I couldn't link it anywhere else, but I think it's on the Coaching International website. Is actually I sent it to Gail years ago to use, so I put it up there for you to reference. And I think that's about all I got. You just got to look at your birds and you got to evaluate them, and you always got to be going forward. You're either going forward or backwards. So you have to evaluate at the end of every year to make sure that you've improved them. And believe me, there's been years when I've looked at my shit.
I always went. Yeah. Yeah.
One
We
time,
went backwards a time or two.
one time I raised 150 chicks out of a couple trios, and I didn't like any of them. Got rid of them all. And I told old Lou Cunningham, I said, Lou, I'm about ready to quit with these things. I said, I raised 150 chicks, and there ain't one of them as good as the adults that I started with. If not, they may be worse. And he told me something I never would have believed. And he said, put them back together again the next year. And against my better intuition, I did. And I got several show champions the next year out of the same matings. Didn't make no
Yeah.
sense, but different time, different place, I guess. And
Yeah.
it clicked that year. So, 1 year, maybe not one generation. Now a lot of times we get 2 generations out of a year, but back then we only raised them once a year. You had one batch and one
Right.
shot. So I guess don't be totally disgruntled if you didn't do really well that year. Try it again the next year, and it may surprise you. Louis told me he's done that with ducks, and Claude Legler told me he's done that with Rhode Island red bantams. That one year he got nothing but smut, and the next year he got good birds. So it's something. I guess genetics is all at a point in time when you're doing it, and
Right.
you might have hit it wrong that one year.
Well, I think if you use that scale of points realistically, I mean, we do when we're judging. We don't always think about it when we're judging, but it's there. I mean, after you do it a while, that's your mind just goes there. That's everything that goes together when you pick a bird. But it's like, you walk on Champion Row and you look and say, well, that's a really nice bird, but he's supposed to have 5 points. He's only got 4. And
Yeah,
that doesn't mean shit.
that's a very small point cut.
I mean, listen, if all birds were that good, where that half point is going to count for something, well, then maybe you're in a class. But, so kind of keep that in mind. And on your birds, too, you got a bird you really love its type, but the color's a little off, and they say, well, you know what, try to find something that you got there that you could fix that color and keep that type. Combs, same thing. Heads, you should be working to improve that on any breed, but you don't do it. It's incremental because you have to keep all the other good stuff while you're trying to improve the other stuff.
Yep.
And that's walking a thin blue line a lot of times. So, okay, there's that. And show prep. Well, I was looking today through. I ordered my leg bands today. Nothing like finally getting something done. My leg bands from the ABA, and as I got on the wild apricot page, geez, I saw a thing about washing chickens. Some 2 old farts put on there. Well, one of the old farts, but both of us from M&M on how to wash chickens. So anybody that wants to know how to wash chickens, why don't you go opening page and you pull up that wild apricot. I should have wrote down what number it is.
Yeah,
but you can click on that son of a gun and there it is.
There's a good point. Is that wild apricot page that you're all get it for free if you're an ABA member. So once you go to that and go to the members only section, there's 800 and some articles on there now that are some of the classics that were from the old ABA database on every subject you ever want. But there's a lot of on different breeds and show prep and more than you could ever read in a month. So go there. We have several that when we took down our webpage because it was just too expensive to keep it up anymore with the advent of technology, but we added a bunch of those old articles that we had written and saved over to put them over on the ABA page. So lots there, different ways to do show prep. And I can tell you that over the years, one thing Mike and I have learned is most of your show prep's done before you ever get there. So all that fussing.
Oh, it's a good thing, or we never win nothing because we don't do hardly anything once we get there.
Well, I think sometimes people do more damage than good in the aisles, putting that show shine on them and getting them so greasy you can't really hang on to them when you show them. Or even I'm not a fan of Veterex and that stuff they put on their combs. It's too slippery and slimy, and so we use something different for ours because we don't like that greasy look. Just little touchy things, but I think sometimes I even see it on Sunday on a double show when they're up there primping the champions. I've seen guys make them worse. So you got to be aware of that. But like I said, a lot of times our birds on Champion Row very seldom even touch them. They got there the way they were, and other than maybe clean them up a little bit if they crapped on themselves or
maybe, but sometimes
just very minor things. Or I've seen them up there reinventing the wheel on Sunday morning.
Yeah. No.
So most of the show is done before you ever get to the show.
Yeah, like I think I said this last time. If you hang around us, if we're going in on it's a Saturday and Sunday show or Saturday show, we're always there Friday night. I mean, they go in there Friday. Now we're talking white birds, white chanticleers, white cochins. I mean, we have a few other colors, but white's the hardest. We go in there, we put them in, we put more shavings in, always. We put the birds in, we put in feed, we put in water, and we leave. Come Saturday morning, we haul out all of our shit, we set it there, we walk down through the birds, maybe we pull out one or two. But most of the time we go, eh.
Yep, you gotta let them settle down and get used to the. Look at my.
Now we will pull water on some of them. You'll find, you got some that are constant water daubers, drinking, dicking around with it. We'll pull the water out or empty the water and put the cup up. But other than that, no. And they don't need all that stuff. They're not going to die if they don't have food and water for 5 hours, folks. Ain't going to happen. You throw their ass in a box and it takes them 4 days to get across the country, but you worry about being at a show for 9 hours. That's just insane. Sorry, but it is.
My best.
But everybody wants to have something to dink around with to think you're doing something when truthfully you can't do shit.
Yeah, my favorite one, and I chastise a lot of people for this, but don't put like 40 pounds of shavings in the goddamn cage.
No, you can't see them.
Me down the aisle, I'm trying to judge the bird. I can't even see the bird because there's so many shavings. I'm raking the shavings out of the bottom of the cage because I can't see the bird stand because he's in a big nest. So you can overdo things. You want enough in there to where they're not running their own crap, but you don't want so many that you can't see the legs on the bird or the shape of the bird because he's in a big nest of shaving. Lord, I don't know what the ideology behind that is, but.
Well, I know what it is on call ducks because then you can't see them with their feet standing on top of each other. I understand that part. So, of course, we move them so we can see if they can. But, but other than that, I don't know why I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't know what it is. The more you give them, the more they're going to want to play in.
Yep.
And get upside down in.
And they'll kick them out 9 times out of 10. So.
Oh, yeah. They're all over. So. That's just a few things. Well, we've been on here for almost an hour and 2 minutes, and that's probably enough for this week. Before I turn it over to Matt, so anything you guys want to hear? Oh, we have a few things planned. You'll see other videos popping up that aren't on this format, that are just on there. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't. So according, some have explanations, but they're just places we've been, or birds we have, or we've been with. I'm going to start putting more of them up. But I'm going to start a thing, I think, in this month, if not this month, then next month, where we're going to kind of do slowly at first, but we're going to do like interview things, which will probably just be done on our phones or on the camera, and we'll try to edit that together. It won't really be with our podcast, but it'll be extra stuff. I know I'm going to Skip Bittner's either this month or next, and we're Terry and I, my wife, we're going to spend a day or so there and take a lot of just videos and just talk like Matt and I talk. We're just going to talk, and then we've had some people want to get on with us to discuss some things about their club or their breed, right?
Yeah, so we're going to have some guests to come. They can actually come right in here. So
yeah, because we can get you in here. So if you want to talk about something, have knowledge on something, more so than a lot of people, you like your breed, you say that you're a master breeder of, name it, Old English, Cochins, whatever. And you have some time, either message, chances are you know us, message us privately, or and leave comments. Because, hey, we'd love to have you. Because, we could talk about all kinds of shit probably for days. After 50 years, stuff gets in there, and maybe we'll do one of these times where we just talk about the old days and bring up some breeders and just talk and tell stories. Some we can tell and some we can't tell. But anyway, so I encourage you to leave comments and let us know what you want. If you want to be on, let us know. If you've got a breeder or something you would really be interested in how they do things, there's a good chance we know them fairly well, let me know, because that's what I'm gonna spend a lot of time doing that, running all over the country and taking videos and talking, and we're gonna try to build a library kind of out of this thing, so that people have things they can refer back to, and if you want to sponsor, have your name up here, let us know. I mean, we're just getting started, but he's a marketing major, so we could probably figure something out. And personally, I encourage you to join the American Bantam Association, join the American Poultry Association. Uh, if you love your breed club, join your breed club. But most importantly, if you live somewhere and there's a show local, how about joining them? Usually, it's a lot of people been a long time and they're getting old and tired, but they keep going because that's what they love to do, and they could use the help, folks. They really could. No real shows coming up for us this month because 3 got canceled. Uh, End of this month, end of March, there is the APA semi-annual scheduled for the Moon City Poultry Club in Wapakoneta, Ohio. Uh, so, I mean, we'll be there, and well, I don't know if we'll go live, but we'll be there, and we'll probably get a little video, maybe do something, or we may do as always, and we get talking so much how we forget to turn the camera on. So, all right, Matt, that's all I got.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Bye.